Picture this. After an amazing week at Tableau Conference, full of knowledge and networking and fun, you're back in your office on Monday morning, and your boss, Sophia, walks in. She says, "Glad you're back, because you're going to be our new Tableau Server admin." She says, "Now I need you to set up a new site for the sales team. There's about 100 users there. They each need their own user account. And when you're done with that, create a new project for each of our 27 product lines. Oh, and we need that all up and running before Wednesday morning's all-hands meeting." Great? Great. Have a good Monday. Well, that's a lot of work to kick off your week. You are going to have a lot going on. You're going to be configuring a site, creating dozens of users and projects, and trying to do all that on top of your regular work as well. It's cool. Tableau's developer platform is here to help you out and save you from a lot of that work. I'm Jessica Wallace. This is my colleague, An Gao. We're software engineers on the developer platform team at Tableau, and we are here to bring you the automation hookup.
Hello, everyone. Really glad to be here. So before we get started, just want to briefly introduce Jessica as you might not know, Jessica has been in Tableau for 8 years. So it's an understatement to say that she knows in and out about Tableau. And she joined the developer platform team earlier this year to help us on the brand new feature called Webhooks. And without her, we won't be standing here today to tell you all about this. And a little bit more about myself is, my name's Ang. I've been in the same team for 3 years, and this is my 3rd time to giving a talk on the REST API. So I'm really excited and passionate about this. And just letting you know, this session is intended to be beginner and intermediate level. So we're going to go over some high-level concepts and show you some of the codes. But if you are the expert and know many of the, or if you have some advanced questions, please feel free to come up to us, ask questions, or even meet us in the Tableau Showcase booth. We will have staff constantly being there to help you. Let's talk about the learning objectives. So today, we're going to firstly talk to you about how to use REST API and Tableau Server Client to help you automate your content management on Tableau Server. And next, Jessica is going to talk to you about the brand new feature called Webhooks, which will help you to receive notification as the event happens from Tableau Server, and you can integrate that with many third-party applications or services. The possibilities here is limitless.
All right, before we dig in, let's look at where these tools fit into our developer tools big picture. So our tools can be grouped into 5 categories. We have our automation and integration tools. Save yourself from monotonous, repeated manual tasks. Extensibility. Bring the ability to interact with other applications right into your Tableau desktop or dashboard. The advanced analytics tools help you take advantage of the computational strengths of tools like or software like R and MATLAB. Embedding. Put your visualizations where they are going to best tell your data story. Web pages, blogs, even other apps. And our data connectivity tools. We know that you have data everywhere, maybe even under your bed at home. Let's make it easy to get that into Tableau. Okay, I don't know what we can do about under the bed, but let's make it easy to get your data into Tableau from wherever you're keeping it. So today we're zooming in on our automation and integration suite, and we're going to kick things off with the REST API.
Okay, now let's talk about REST API. First, what is REST? You can think of REST as a way to making API calls through the HTTP. It has 3 major components. The first one is where the resource is. It could be a URL pointing to your site, and then also there will be additional string on the end to indicating which endpoints you're going to point it to. It could be a site, it could be a project, it could be users, and many more. Next, is the operation. It has to be an HTTP verb, such as a get for a query request, post for a creation, put for update, and delete for deletion. Lastly, is the data that you're going to send for each of those requests. I want to point it out for the authentication token on the second bucket, which is you will need to send that in the request header file, in the request header, so that you can let the server to understand who you are and get authenticated correctly. And for post and put request, you will need to send a request body as well, and that request body could be in XML or JSON. So let's look at the capabilities. For those of you hearing the Tableau Server REST API for the very first time, you might be wondering what it is and what it can do. Firstly, we can use the REST API to manage your users, such as you can query all the users on the site. You can also publish a workbook or data source to Tableau Server without going through the Tableau Desktop UI. You can also use the REST API to manage different sites, projects, user permissions, and so on. Basically, all the functionalities you can achieve through the Tableau Server UI can be done through the REST API as well. And also, this API not only works for the on-prem Tableau Server, it also applies to the Tableau Online perfectly. So now let's talk about the user scenarios. Firstly, REST API can help you in the embedded analytics, so that when you are using embedding JS API to put the Tableau visits into your custom portal or your mobile application, you can use the REST API along with that to control your content and manage them throughout your own customized portal. And next is for content auditing. Think about as a server admin, you can use REST API to ask questions like, how many users are actively publishing a workbook? Or how many users are under my site? Also, you can use REST API as part of your workflow integration, such as the ETL process that you have. And today, we are focusing on the enterprise automation. Let's look at one example. This is first is the post. We're going to send a post request to create a new project. As you can see, the HTTP verb here is post, and the HTTPS server address is the URL that's pointing to your own server or Tableau Online site with the API 3.6, meaning we are sending the REST API version 3.6, which is the latest one from the Tableau 19.4. And lastly, we are indicating it's going to be for the specific site, and then the endpoint is the project. And if you remember, for the second part, we need to send the data. Here is the X Tableau auth header. And then if you can see, the string is kind of randomized text. It's the authentication token so that the Tableau server can know who you are and authenticate you securely. Lastly, is the request body. We are sending as a JSON, so it starts with a project object, and in the metadata, we're also providing a name and then the description for the projects. Now let's look at a query request. We can list all the projects just by changing the HTTP verb from a post to get. And as you can see, the URL stays the same. And more than that, if you have lots of projects on your site, you can even query that by adding a filter query parameter, specifying by the name equals to my little llama, which is the specific project name that we just created. And also, you can sort all those results by specifying the order using created add, and you can sort it by ascending or descending order. And why not combine both? All you need is just plus the ampersand in between, and all things just worked. Now, let's look at a demo. And if you have any question, please note them down, and then we will get back to you later. So here, I want to show you an application called Postman. This application is a very good tool that we use to develop and test our REST APIs. And as you can see, we have a sign-in request that's already created, and we are pointing the URL to the Tableau online site using and then the endpoint is auth/signin. As you can see here, we can choose the different HTTP method. Here, since it's a sign-in, we're going to use a post. And in the request body, we are sending a JSON format, and the credential object is going to contain the information that we're going to send to the server. And as you can see here, we are using a personal access token, which is a new feature just got launched in Tableau 19.4 release, which will greatly help us to avoid to increase the security and easy of the management, so that we don't have to. Oh, sorry, I will get back to you later. So that we can use. Sorry. So that we don't have to embed our own username and password blindly in the script. So that all you have to do is just paste in the token, and then the token is very easily managed. You can revoke it or create it at any point you want. So if you think your token has any risk of being leaked, you can just revoke it from the Tableau server and create a new one. All things are just working. And since here we already have the path token set, and we can just click send. Oh, sorry. One more thing here is the content URL for the site, so that we can specify which site we are signing into. Because this is Tableau Online, we're gonna sign into our demo site. So now everything's ready, and we're just gonna click send. As you can see, we have a return status as 200, which is success. And in the response body, we get a credential object, and the most important part is the token. This security token is going to be used in the Tableau auth header later on for all the following requests that we'll be using. And we are doing a little bit magic, so we don't have to copy paste the token right now. If you're curious, we can talk about that later. And now let's see how to create a project. As we've shown in the code sample, we're going to send a post request and pointing to our Tableau Online site. In the body, we are indicating the project with the name called Webhook Sales, and with a little description. Now let's click send. Since it's a post request, so the response code is 201, meaning created. And you can see all the metadata got a reply back from Tableau server with the correct name that we just created, and also something like the created time, update time. Now let's see how we can query the projects. So the URL stays the same. All we need to do is just changing the HTTP method from post to get. And since it's a GET request, we don't need the request body in here. Here you can see we have 3 projects got returned. The first one is the default project, the second one is sample, and then the one we just created is on the third. And now, if you remember, we can do a little bit filtering. So this means we're gonna do a filter on the project names in Webhook Sales. So if we click send now, as you can see, we're filtering down the results to just one item, got a reply back. And just to show you things worked, here we have this project just created. Okay, now let's go back to the slides. Oh yes, so all this example code and slides will be ready for you to reference and share after TC. And now let's talk about the next thing, the Tableau Server client. Tableau TSC, we like to short name it, is an open source client library written in Python. It's open source, so it welcomes everyone to contribute to it. And also, it's built on top of the Tableau Server REST API, so it has the very intuitive design, easy to understand and use. And it helps you to abstract away all those low-level implementation and plumbing work that might be daunting for you if you want to program using REST API. And lastly, it's available on PyPy. So all you need to do on your computer is to just type in pip install, and you will have this library ready for you to use. Let's see how the Tableau server, how the TSC can do the same work using creating a project. So on the first line, we are just importing Tableau Server Client as a module, and then we're creating a server object by pointing to the server address and indicating we're going to use whatever version, or whatever REST API version on this server, so that we can get all the new capabilities every time on every request. And lastly, we're creating the auth object using the personal access token. And when we are trying to create the project, firstly, we just call server.auth.signin, which will sign you in using the personal access token. And next, you just need to create a project item with the name and description as you want, and then call server.projects.create. And then you will get a return with a new project that's created. And now let's see another demo. So since Sophia has asked us to load all those users and create all those projects, and she also very generously has provided us a CSV file, or 2 CSV files for the projects and the usernames, something like this. So in the Python code, as you can see in the main function, the first 2 lines are simply just reading those CSV files and parse them as the user and projects respectively. And the next few lines, as you already seen, is for the user to sign in. And once the sign-in is succeed, we can simply loop over the projects list. For each of the project, we're going to create the project item, and then we're simply going to call a wrapper function called createProject by passing in the server object and the project object. If we come over to the createProject method, you can see it's a very simple, just calling server.projects.create, which is very intuitive, very easy to use, and you might not even need to reference to the doc to understand and make function calls similar to this for like sites or workbooks or so on. And if we go back for the users list, we can create similarly. We're gonna loop over all those users, and for each of the users, we create a user item with the username and the site role. And when we are calling add user, all it's doing is server.users.add. And these would send the REST API request to the Tableau server and then check the response and return if it succeeds or not. So if we see in action, so here we can see the projects. It's a bit slow. Did you show up on the screen? No.
Well, we all have technical difficulties, right?
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Now let's click run.
Run, little script, run.
Okay. I'm not too worried because I've been to worse. On my first TC talk, my laptop just start installing Mac updates and then it never come back. So I would say this is actually not that bad.
One thing you'll find is that we have our documentation, we have examples of the TSC code, and we do invite everyone to contribute. This is an open source project available on GitHub. So you can take the time to check it out and see, as An was saying, that this is a very user-friendly way to interact with your server.
Thank you. And as you can see now, the script has done its job. And if we hop over on the Tableau server site, we can see all those projects and all those users. So very simply, you've done whatever Sophia has asked you to do. And okay, now it's still early and we still have time. And the best thing is the script is ready and can be reused. So whenever Sophia come up with more users, more projects, or something similar, you already have yourself covered.
All right, thank you, An. There we go. All right, so it's Tuesday. You've written your TSC code. You've run it. The site's been created and set up. The users are out there. The projects are out there. You're feeling good for Wednesday's meeting. And then Sophia walks in. She says, hey, I want to know every time somebody publishes a new workbook to this site. And I don't mean end of day, send me an email roll-up. I want to get a notification right when it happens. All right, how are we going to do that? You're not going to want to sit here and hit F5, 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 F5 all the time. You could write a TSC script to take care of that. Have it check every 30 seconds, just do a query, anything new, anything new, anything new. But that's not a great use of resources unless you have a very prolific sales team. This is a great case study for webhooks. So I see a lot of smiles in the audience, and I also see a lot of confusion. Webhooks? Webhooks essentially are a notification that something has happened on your server or your site or your service. When that event happens, the service or your site sends out an HTTP post request to some destination outside of Tableau. Now, this could be a service like Zapier or Automate.io or other services that automate your workflow for you. It could also be your own server that you've written that can receive an HTTP request. However you're going to do it, the destination is responsible for taking that information about the event and doing something with it. One of the great things, though, about webhooks is, as we just saw, they're more efficient than polling when you're watching for something to happen. For example, has anyone ever gone on a road trip with kids in the car? So if you have, you know that you get a couple miles down the road and they've finished reading their books and eating their snacks and breathing their sister's air, and then they start asking questions. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Mom, when are we going to get there? Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be sitting there trying to focus on driving and trying to answer these questions for them at the same time. I want a way to just tell them, I will tell you when we get there. Stop asking. Well, that's what a webhook is going to do for you with your Tableau server. As we just saw, we have a good REST API in the server client. And now we're adding webhooks. Why add both of them? It's kind of like peanut butter and chocolate. They just go so well together. Our API is an interface with your server. You, as the user, are going to tell the server, create a site, add new users, do this, do that. You, as the user, are also going to ask the server, how many logins did we have today? What was the last successful database refresh? All of this is initiated by the user. A webhook, on the other hand, There's only one interaction with the user, and that's when you set it up. After that, the webhook will just continue on its way, watching for events, sending out the messages. You don't have to do anything, it's just going to do that for you. Let's look at how that whole workflow would go. So here's you. Here's your site on online or a server. Here is that external destination that I mentioned earlier. These are just a couple that you can use. Glitch, Zapier, Automate. There's a lot more out there, or you could write your own. So you're going to set up your webhook. You're going to give it this event that you're looking for. Workbook created. You're going to give it the destination. Maybe this would be your Zapier workflow that's going to catch the webhook. And you're going to give it a friendly name so that when you later do a big query and see all your webhooks, you know, oh yeah, that one does this. You've set it up. Now you get to go off and do other stuff. The webhook is still there. When the event occurs, it automatically sends that message off to your external site, which then does whatever you wanted it to do with it, maybe sending an email or posting to your Slack channel. You know, webhooks are not just a Tableau thing either. These are a very big industry trend or standard, you would say. Lots of the services that you already use have support for webhooks. You know, PayPal, Google, even Instagram. So let's talk about what we can do in Tableau with webhooks. Any user with a admin role, so server admin, site admin creator, site admin explorer, has the ability to create and manage your webhooks. We set those up using the REST API. And by now you're all pros, right? And the message that's going to go out to your destination includes the event type, the name of the resource, so your workbook or your data source name, and the site that it's coming from, just in case you have webhooks on multiple sites, you know which one had the event happen. We support 13 different events in this first release of webhooks for Tableau, having to do with data sources and workbooks. We know that there are a lot of other actions that people want to watch for. Just during the hackathon yesterday, we had requests for user actions. What about groups actions? We hear you. We've got that in the plans. All right, let me show you an example then of how we would set this up using the REST API. Just as before, when we created a project, we are going to use a post request. The only difference in the URI is that now we're putting webhooks on the end rather than projects. Also, you need to include the authentication header just like you did before. In the body of the post request, you include the source or the event that we're watching for, the destination where we're going to send it, and that friendly name. In this case, this is Sophia wanting to know that a new workbook has been published. All right, let's go ahead and set that up. And as before, if you have questions that come up during the demo or any of our other talk, just make a note because we will have time for Q&A later. All right. Good there? All right. So, before I get into that, as I mentioned a minute ago, there's really two parts to the webhook. There's the part that's on your server, which says watch for this event and then send a message out. And then there's the recipient that's going to receive that message and process your payload and send your email. You can set those up in either order, but I've found that a lot of times it's easier to set up the destination first before going in and setting up the webhook on my Tableau site. So that's what I'm going to do here. Oh, there we are. Shoom, 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 shoom. All right. As I mentioned, we're using a site called Zapier. This is a no-code way to create workflows that move information from one service to another. There are quite a few others. I've also used glitch.com a lot. Yeah. So I'm setting up my Zap that is going to catch a webhook coming from Tableau Server. And I tell it to use webhooks here. And then I go into Customize Hook. Now notice here that it's giving me a custom webhook URL. That is what I'm going to use in my webhook as my destination URL. This is why I wanted to do this side first. Down here, we're just saying which information out of the webhook body do we want to be using. Then after that, we're going to set up the result of the action. So in this case, we're sending an email. We receive it, so we receive a webhook. We take a look at what information was included in that webhook, and then we're going to send that out as an email. We're going to send it to Ang because I don't actually have an email address for Sophia right now. And we fill in the subject. We use the fields, everything that came from before. All right, let's open this back up. So Zapier has given us a URL to use as the destination. I'm going to copy that to my clipboard. Then I'm going to come over here to Postman. Here's my webhook post request. There we have the same URL that we had before. In the header, we have a variable for the authentication token. And now here's the body. So right here, I'm telling it which event I'm watching for. Down here is the name. And right here is where we are going to put that URL. I'm going to just paste that in, just like that. All right. Now, if I've done this all correctly, we should be creating a webhook on the site that we were looking at before. There we go. The response body, as with the projects, tells us that we have successfully created a webhook and gives us the information that we were looking for. The URL, here's the owner of the webhook, in that case, that's me. And here's the webhook ID itself, which you would use if you were going to, say, delete or test or query for this specific webhook. All right, we set up the Zap, we set up the webhook. Should we see if that works? You're supposed to say, yeah! Come on, killing me here. Okay, let's go find a data source. Great, good old Superstore. And we're going to create a workbook using web authoring. And I'm just going to come up here and just save this workbook. Okay, the workbook's there. There we go. If we go in here, we'll see that we have our workbook. Okay, there's my old one. And now, we can go over here to our email account. Let's see. So, the network being what it is, it might take us a minute here for this new email to arrive. In the meantime, oh, hey, there we go. Just like that. Now, in this case, it's actually showing two emails that came in. Occasionally, with an online site, we see a second webhook. No, wait, didn't I have two? I had two webhooks on here. So, all right. This is what happens when you're practicing your demo right before your talk, is you forget to go through and clean everything out. At any rate, here is our notification. There's the new workbook that was created. Here's the timestamp. Now Sophia is going to know immediately anytime someone publishes a new workbook. Okay. Oh, thank you. And as before, we'll have this available online for you to take a look at. We actually have a Postman collection available right now for our webhooks that's showing you examples of how to create webhooks and query. One thing I didn't mention is we also have a command to test the webhook. So you've set up your webhook. It's going to go off and do some mission-critical task. You don't want to, you want to make sure it's actually working before you all go. So you can test the webhook by sending just a test payload to it. All right. I showed you what we currently have available in webhooks. How about what's ahead? As I mentioned, more events. We have so many ideas for what we want to do. Users, groups, comments, all kinds of things. We'd actually love to get some great feedback from you as to which type of events are most important. How should we prioritize these? We want to let everybody be able to use webhooks. So not just the site and server admins. At the same time, we want to make sure we're respecting privacy and permissions and not letting Ong set a webhook for my personal workbooks. So we are going to add a UI. Not everyone wants to use REST. I mean, come on, I know you're a big fan, I'm a big fan. But, yeah. And we'd like to let you customize the payload as well. So I showed you a couple slides back all the information that we're including in there. Maybe you don't need to include it all. Maybe there's something more that you want to add. We want to give you the ability to tweak that webhook and have it bring the information that you need. All right. So that was Tuesday. Now it's Wednesday morning. The all-hands meeting is starting in half an hour. Sophia asked you to set up a site and add 100 new user accounts. She asked you to make a new project for each of the 27 product lines. And she asked you to send immediate notifications every time somebody published a workbook. No worries, you got this. With TSC and the REST API and webhooks, you will be able to automate a lot of the tasks that often take forever to try and do manually. All right, we went through a lot today. We talked about how the REST API gives you an interface to your server. Talked about how the Tableau Server client gives you a Python library to handle those REST API calls. And we talked about how webhooks are going to let you hear about things as they happen. Now, before we wrap up, we have plenty of time. We have plenty of time for some Q&A. So, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be...
Just 1 sec. Hey, folks, there is going to be a little bit more after the Q&A, so please don't rush out quite yet. Okay, back to your question, sir.
Yes. Yeah. So those are currently available through the Tableau Server UI. If you go to the server settings page.
You're not seeing it yet.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
So if you click on here, go to my account settings. Scroll down a little bit, you can see the personal access token, and you can just create from there, and you can also revoke for whatever you already have. Yeah.
We are, yes, with 2019.4, we have it available for online and on-premises server.
Oh,
so, yep.
Sorry, just to clarify a little bit, the Webhooks is new, but REST API is available for online like long time ago, since we already, yeah.
Hi.
I believe so.
For your, yeah, okay.
So just to clarify, it's the personal access token view, right? Yes, that's only available for the admins because we want to make sure only the admin can hand out those security tokens. And if you are curious, I believe we have a session specifically for this, for the personal access token or overall about the authentication in Tableau. So yeah, check it out.
Okay, sir. We currently, right now, it's just watching. So this is our first version, and it's anytime a workbook is created, it will send an event. What we have in mind for the future is having a way to narrow that down. So it's not necessarily everybody's workbook sends. So.
Oh, sorry. So just to add on a little bit, right now it's like per site. The webhooks is scoped for each site, and then if you have a new workbook published, and then you have an event, if you have a webhook waiting for that event, like for that site, then when a new workbook is published, then for that site, it's going to trigger all the webhooks for that site. And if you have workbook for a different site, then it's going to be just stay silent.
All right, I think we have time for one or two more. Sir, you in the yellow had a yellow.
Right now, we only have the extract, refresh, succeed, failed, and started. So for those three, yeah.
And then there was one more over here.
Yeah.
Oh, there.
So I believe right now for TSC, for publishing workbook, it's going to do the chunking for you already, which is similar for the REST API. That will chunk the huge zip file into 50 meg per chunk, and then they will like put them back together on the Tableau server. But for the 10 gig size, I'm not really sure. I only tried like 1 gig or so. Yeah. Great, yeah. Let's trust the internet.
And also, if you could swing by our booth in the Tableau showcase, I'm sure we've got lots of people who could probably give you more insight on that too. So, all right. Do we have time for one more?
Sure.
All right, one more. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Oh, do we need SMTP?
The answer is no, because the webhooks, the Tableau server is responsible for sending the webhooks out to the destination, and if you want, you can use third-party services like Zapier, and then they will have the SMTP server ready for you to send out the email. Or if you're really hardcore, you want to make your own, you can also start up your own server, and then listening on specific endpoints, and register the webhooks to that endpoint, and you can do whatever you want. You can do SMTP, or you can even just like build up a little app that just show you some updates, anything you want. Yeah.
All right. I know that there's a lot of other questions. Ang will be here at the end of the session. You can also please come by our booth, our customize. What is it? Customize APIs, SDKs?
Yeah,
like
API
that.
SDK booth. Just find us there,
Yeah.
and we'll be right there.
We'll be there, and a lot of our teammates will be there too. All right. So if you want to get an early sneak peek of those future plans, sorry. We have our Tableau developer program. We would love to have you sign up for it. This will not only let you get a sneak peek at what's coming up, what we may not yet have released, it's also going to let you connect with other Tableau developers like yourself and even our engineering team. We have a lot of resources available for you on GitHub and our Tableau sites, even tutorial videos on YouTube. And if you are ready to dive in this week, we have 3 hands-on sessions for Webhooks coming up, and as of before this session, they all still had seats available. One of them is right after this at 4 o'clock. I'm going to be running up there myself. You're welcome to follow me. One thing to be aware of is that the Webhooks hands-on training is going to require you to have a developer program account because we need to be able to use an online pod that supports webhooks. So if you're going to one of the Webhooks hands-on training, save yourself a little bit of time and get that set up before the hands-on training. We have two hands-on training for TSC. One of them is tomorrow and the next is Friday. And on Friday, we have an opportunity for you to chat with one of our engineering managers and staff engineers about what's ahead for automation and integration APIs in general. And this will be the kind of session where they will spend a little bit of time talking, and then it's all up to you. So if you're really big on that kind of conversations and stuff, we invite you to make a little time Friday afternoon to visit this. All right. Thank you very much for coming to our session.